So when you become widowed and you're a parent, you're gonna make some mistakes, and it's okay. In a minute, I'm gonna tell you about the 11 mistakes that I made when I became a widowed parent. So stay tuned. Hi Wood fam, this is Leo with One Happy Widow. Today I'm going to share with you 11 mistakes that I made when I became a widowed parent. I'm sure that I made 1,100 mistakes as a parent, but I just had to narrow it down to the 11. We got to stop the recording at some moment, right? So I wanted to cut it off and just kind of list the top things that if I could go back and change, that I would. And if I could tell you about it, then maybe you will know ahead of time and, maybe think about it before making some of the same mistakes that I did. Also, I wanted to let you know, if you're newly widowed, I did create a PDF that has a list of the most common contacts that you need to make when you first become widowed. It's the widowed contact list, and so it's just kind of a checklist for you to check off and look at and see, just to make sure that you've contacted everybody that you need to contact, and who you need to let know about things. And so if you're interested in getting that PDF for free, I'll leave a link below so that you can sign up so that you can receive that PDF. Just something that might be helpful to you that I created. Now we're going to get to the list, the 11 mistakes. I guess I could call it the 11 biggest mistakes that I made when I became a widowed parent, or you could call me a solo parent. There is a difference between solo parents and single parents. Sometimes people don't realize that and they like to call us single parents, but we're really not. It's a lot different than being a single parent. There is no other parent out there. We're doing it all by ourselves. We're not getting child support. We're not getting any other kind of support. Not only that, but the kids have lost a parent. They're grieving. And it makes parenting so much harder than it would be otherwise. So I'm learning as I go. I'm over 4 years out. My husband died of cancer back in 2017, and I have 4 kids that were all living at home at the time, and 2 of them are now living on their own, and I still have 2 living back at home, and they're still struggling with the grief of their dad, and it's just about as acute as it was in the very beginning, if not worse. And it makes me struggle. It makes my grief journey that much harder. And I've really been struggling lately. I think the holidays coming up just kind of sets us off, and sets the kids off too. And, I'm just struggling. So I wanted to share some of those things that I struggle the most with you, so that maybe if you've struggled with them too, you can sort of, say, yeah, I've been through it, and know that you're not alone. And if you're freshly widowed and you're going through solo parenting, you're looking ahead, this might be some things just to think about and be aware of, to look at and look for, on down the road. So the first mistake that I made was assuming that my kids were okay. They definitely went through a longer period of numbness and denial than I did. I think because they just didn't understand the permanence of death. And, they really didn't understand that. They knew in their heads, but it really did not hit home for them for a while that Daddy was never coming back, like forever, ever, ever. And it took a little longer. And so it kind of seemed like, okay, they're dealing with it. They're okay. They're all right. I think they're going to be okay. I know they're sad and stuff, but they are trugging along. And, even was talking to a coworker of mine who had children that were the same age as my, at the time, 15-year-old. And after the fact, we were talking about it, and she even said, yeah, my boys were asking me, Mom, why is she acting so happy? Like, we see her riding around on the golf cart and she's like cutting up and laughing, and her dad just died. Like, why is she not even acting like it's bothering her at all? And, number one, she didn't know how to act, and number two, she was in shock, denial. And trust me, when it hit her hard. So it just was a delayed reaction. So I assumed my kids were okay. I'm like, okay, we're doing this. Like, not so bad. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Oh, was I mistaken? So that was my first mistake. So my second mistake was thinking that my kids' grief would look the same as mine. And that was just a dumb assumption, but like nobody's grief looks the same as anybody else's. But on the other hand, children just grieve differently than grown-ups do. It comes out in weird behaviors, behaviors at school, maybe failing grades or sleeping disturbances, eating disturbances, angry outbursts, wild experimentation with things that they don't need to be experimenting with, becoming friends with people they normally would not become friends with, just like I said, anger, behaviors, failing school, anxiety, depression, just stuff like that. But it was much more pronounced, and it was just, these behaviors would come out of the blue, and I think, what the heck is going on? What is wrong? And then, oh yeah, they're grieving. Oh yeah, their dad died. So, their grief patterns, they all kind of came out in different ways with all 4 kids. But not only that, but it was so much different than the way that my grief was progressing. And so I didn't recognize a lot of the stuff as actually being grief. I just thought it was like rebellious kids or whatever. And a lot of it really just was grief. Another mistake that I've made is thinking that my kids would be the same. Like once they got past, their grief, or once they got past the hardest part and they learned how to move forward and, they learned how to heal and they started living their life again, that they would just be the same kids they were, but just dealing with a dead dad. That's not the case. My kids are nothing like they used to be. Nothing. Kids change anyway, but their changes were so pronounced that sometimes I just wonder what happened to that kid. And then I realized that they're still developing. Like I was already whoever I am. I had already developed into whoever I was. And this grief, it changed me also, but, I'm still pretty much the same person. But the grief for my kids actually changed them into different people that they would not have been if their dad had lived. And so, their lives were on a path, and then whereas it would have, went into this path, instead, it went over to this path. And now they will never be the same. They are forever changed because of that experience. And now we have to deal with whatever those changes have done to them and try to help them create some kind of a life the best way that we can, and still, help them become healthy and happy adults, which is proving to be extremely difficult. The 4th mistake that I made was I felt sorry for my kids. And so I gave in to them. I felt like, life has dealt them such a blow already. Life has already punished them enough by taking their dad away. I didn't want to punish them more. So I felt sorry for them. I took pity on them, and I really didn't, enforce many rules. I just let them do whatever they did. And they became entitled, they became bratty, and they pretty much ran all over me and expected just to be able to do whatever they wanted to do. They also discovered the dead dad card and tried to play it at every chance that they could get. And so, especially the teenager, she just wanted to say, well, my dad died. I'm really sad, so I don't want to take this test today. My dad died. I'm really sad. I don't really want to have to go to work. So I called in, a mental health day. And now they want to try to fire me. Or, she just felt like, well, if I just tell them I'm sad because my dad died, then they have to give me whatever I want. And that's not how life works. And so, I think I kind of added to that because I didn't really hold them accountable. And then, maybe 2 years in, when I tried to take back my parental control, I said, okay, this is it. Like, y'all are running all over me. I can't deal with this. I can't deal with how you're acting. And, you're basically treating me like crap and not respecting me at all. And so when I tried to, take the reins back and actually parent them, they did not like that one bit. And it was my own fault because I'm the one that spoiled them and gave in all the time, and felt sorry for them and just basically let them do whatever they wanted to do. And then when I tried to come in and parent them again, it was like, no, we ain't having that. So it was really hard for me to regain control. I probably never actually did because I was never the disciplinarian to begin with. So it was really hard for me to be that when I had to change into that role right when Dewey died. And so when I really tried to, rein it in and take control and actually parent them and put some boundaries in place, it became damn near impossible for me to be able to do that. All right, the fifth mistake that I made was thinking that their grief timeline was going to be the same as mine, which that was stupid of me also. Like nobody's timeline is the same, even as adults, nobody's timeline is the same. But I guess I just figured, we're going to go through that first year. We're going to go through the hardest part. And sometimes they say the second year is the hardest too, because, the reality kicks in and now you really understand they're not coming back. And, maybe kind of the numbness is worn off and you go through this depression. That's kind of like the typical timeline, of a grown up who's lost their spouse. But for my kids, it seems like it's just gotten worse and worse and worse, because the longer time goes by, the longer they've been without their dad, and then the longer they miss him. And then they start thinking about, wow, I can't remember what he sounds like. They start forgetting memories of them, and it makes them really upset. And then they have all these milestones that they're going through, and then daddy's not there for them to get married and see this first grandchild and see them graduate from high school and see them go to homecoming and see them with their driver's license and help them, teach them how to drive, and, all these milestones that kids go through. And they're not experiencing that. And so every single time they go through one of those milestones, it just breaks that scab open and reopens that wound and makes it really tough. And so it's really, I have not experienced seeing them heal in a way that I assumed that they would on the same kind of timeline that I've tried to be on. And so that's been really eye-opening for me. The healing process for them is a lot slower, sometimes not moving at all for them compared to me trying to move forward. And at the same time, they look at me and they see me moving forward, and they get upset with me sometimes. They accuse me of forgetting about daddy. You just forgot about daddy. You just got remarried, and you just, like, you're laughing and you didn't care about him. You just moved, you just left him behind. You forgot about him. You're just doing your thing, and you must not have cared about him. You just totally forgot about daddy. And so that makes them upset because they see me moving forward and they're not doing the same thing. So the sixth mistake that I made when I became a widowed parent was that I did not get them help soon enough. I figured, I could help them. I was a school teacher. I teach high school. I can deal with teenagers. A lot of my students have issues and problems, and I can usually help them through it. But so I just figured, we just get through it somehow. And then if they got too bad off, or if they needed some help, then I would try to get them some help. And I should have just got them into therapy, like pretty much as soon as he got sick or as soon as he died, just to kind of keep them on a healthy path. We should have all gone to therapy. We should have gone to family therapy. They should have all gone to therapy, but I waited until I saw signs of them really needing help. And by then it was like they were just about drowning, and then they were so down in this deep black hole of emotions that it was really, really hard for them to get out of that. And so that was definitely a mistake that I made. Get your kids in therapy. I don't really do therapy too much for myself, but I feel like that kids need therapy more than grown-ups do, because kids are still developing. Their brains are still developing. They're still learning how to be people. They're still learning about the world and how everything works. And if they start having warped senses and thoughts about things, it could really mess them up. And so I think therapy for kids is really important to kind of help them develop healthy coping mechanisms to express their anger, their sadness, their grief, and things like that. So the seventh mistake that I made as a widowed parent was to throw money at them. I was lucky enough, not lucky, I wasn't lucky, it's a stupid word to use, but I was blessed that Dewey took care of us in a way that even after his death, he took care of us. He took care of his family financially. So he set us up with a good life insurance policy. And I still have to work. I'm not sitting around throwing stacks of money into the fire to keep warm, but it enabled me to provide them with a place to live and buy them things that we needed. I could buy them clothes. I could buy the necessities, but also I could buy a few extra things. And so retail therapy became my therapy. So I spent on myself, and it made me feel better. So I figured I'd just spend on them and maybe make them feel better. So I bought a car for my 16-year-old when she was 15. I bought a golf cart Also for the 15-year-old, I bought clothes out the yin yang. I bought Christmas. Their first Christmas after he died was freaking ridiculous. I spent so much money. I don't even remember what I bought. I just bought and bought and bought. And you know, if they started seeming like they were kind of getting sad or going off course, just buy them something, you know, like, here, let's a new phone, here's a new video game, here's a new stuffed animal, here's new bedding and new furniture, new, you know, here's the new house, here's a new car. You know, I just bought them stuff thinking that if I could just, because we struggled financially before he died. And so for the first time in my whole adult life, I had, I don't want to say money to burn, but I had money, I had discretionary income, disposable income, you know, that I could use to, you know, buy some luxury things that we wouldn't have been able to buy otherwise. And so I just bought them stuff thinking, hey, this will make you feel better. Try this. What about this? Here, I bought you that. I bought you this. And it did not work. So I made them feel better very, very temporarily. And then the grief came back, you know, because you cannot make your grief go away with stuff. But I sure tried. All right, another big mistake that I made when I became a widowed parent was I allowed my kids to change their environment when things got hard. So I signed them up for you know, martial arts. Well, when they decided they didn't like that anymore because it got too hard, I just let them quit. Okay, we'll just quit. You know, they signed up for sports. If they wanted to quit, I just let them quit. When school got too hard, I just moved them to another school. When their grades started failing, I just moved them to another school. When schools didn't work, I just pulled them home and homeschooled them. Tried online school. We tried homeschool. We tried public school. We tried another public school. We tried charter schools. You know, we tried, you know, when things got hard, I was like, okay, fine, we'll just do something else. Instead of saying, and I can remember my mom, I would want to quit playing softball because I'd get pissed off at the coach or mad at one of the girls or didn't want to sit the bench too much. And I'd tell my mom, I'm quitting. I'm not going back. And she'd say, you are not quitting. You don't have to play again next year if you don't want to, but you signed up to play this season and your ass is going back. And I would get so mad at her. But it was a good lesson and it was good for me. And I did not do that for my kids. I just let them just, you know, if it's too hard, we'll do something else. Just quit. Just don't worry about it. If it gets too hard, we'll figure something else out. So that was a big mistake. And so now, you know, I have a daughter who's 19 and she's trying to hold down a job and she's trying to go to school and she's got her own apartment and she's trying to, you know, make ends meet. And, you know, when things get too hard for her, she just, you know, oh, well, I quit my job today. Well, I withdrew from school. It was just too hard. The teachers were mean and you know, the students were mean and just, you know, things got too hard. I just quit. And so it is proving to, you know, cause problems in her life. And so I feel like it's my fault because I allowed her to think that that was okay as she was growing up. And now that she's an adult, instead of hanging in there and sticking in there and like, even though it's going to get hard, it's going to be worth it. You know, nothing worth having is going to be easy, you know, and if you really work at it and get through it and get through the hard stuff, you will appreciate what you have that much more. But I did not instill that in my kids after Dewey died. And so that was a big mistake for me because it was so hard for me to ride through it with them because I've got 4 of them. So it was like, problem kid whack-a-mole. You know, a kid has a problem, you know, I get rid of that one. A kid has another problem, and I get rid of that one. And a kid has another problem, move him to another school. This kid has a problem, buy him a car. This kid has another problem, just, you know, just let's go away and quit that sport or whatever. So it was kind of my way of coping too. Not healthy, not something that I would recommend. So the number 9 thing, this might go along with the number 2 thing, so I'm not really sure, but the number 9 mistake that I made was not recognizing behaviors as grief. So, like my youngest one was getting stomach aches and she was vomiting a lot. And so I kept thinking, what in the world is wrong with her? And so, and she was like missing school. She missed like, you know, 30 some days of school in the first semester or something because and I couldn't like stay home with her. I had to work. And so whenever she started getting pukey, I would just not send her to school, just let her stay home, because if she went to school and went to the nurse, then I'd have to take off from work and take her home. So it just became this big snowball of stuff. And I'm like, what is wrong with her? Does she have an ulcer? Does she have freaking cancer? Like, what is it? She was having headaches, vomiting, she went through a battery of tests. They did all these blood tests to see if there was anything wrong with her blood, her heart, her organs. They did all these scans of her organs. They did a brain scan. They did allergy tests. They did, every test under the sun, and found nothing. So they end up calling it something called cyclic vomiting, and I think it's just basically from anxiety. And it was just this, she'd get nervous and she'd get stressed out, and it would cause her to puke. And so she could basically puke on command. She'd be like, I don't want to be at school today, bleh, and she'd go in the bathroom and vomit, and she'd get out of school. And so it became her way of avoidance. And so I did not recognize that as being like a manifestation of her grief until later on. And once she started I'm actually putting her on some medication now, so she started getting some medication for her anxiety. And now that her anxiety is kind of not as high, she's not vomiting as much. She still has like a queasy stomach anyway, but it's helping a lot. So I just, I did not recognize some of the physical manifestations, some of the behaviors, like the anger, the fighting, and the anger, a lot of anger. Did not realize the anger, is like suppressed grief. You suppress grief, it turns into anger, just so you know, with kids, at least with mine. Number 10. This kind of goes along with number 9, but another mistake that I made was the anger that was coming out with the kids, 2 of them in particular, but I took it too personally. I took it as just me being a crappy parent and them just going through adolescence and just, acting out. And I took it personally. And then that made me mad. And so when they got angry, they weren't always angry at me. Sometimes it was just angry outbursts, but one of them was, constantly threatening to fight people at school. She's like, I'm going to get in a fight, Mom, at school. I'm telling you, somebody's going to look at me the wrong way. I'm going to beat somebody's butt. And so, she comes home. She's like, yeah, so-and-so, she really ticked me off, and I think I'm going to fight her. And so she's like, Mom, I have a fight inside of me. I have this fight that is growing inside of me, and I'm just waiting. And like, one of these days, somebody's just going to look at me wrong. She's going to say the wrong thing. And I'm just telling you, I'm going to fight. And she's going to the school where I work. And so, not a good combination. And then, she'd want to take her anger out on me. And so she wanted to fight me. And a couple times we almost did. And then the little one was having anger problems, and she's, I'm finding like hammers in her room, and she's throwing hammers at the wall and holes, and she's taking her toys and she's breaking them into pieces, and she's stomping them. I come in and I see pieces of toys just broken in the floor and stuff, just, breaking things. And I took it personally. I got really upset and mad. And so their anger triggers my anger. And then my anger be taken out on them, and I'd get frustrated with them and, at how they're acting. And then they get mad at me because I'm getting on to them. And so it's just this angry cycle. Okay, so just don't take the anger personally. Just know that they're angry, but they're not really angry at you. They're taking the anger out on you because you're the safe person, the person that cares about them, that they know is not ever going to leave them. And so, kids take out their feelings on the people that they trust the most. And then last but not least is something that I still struggle with, but mistake number 11 was not showing my grief in front of the kids. So, I cried in my car when I was on my way to work by myself. I cried in the shower so that the tears could just be washed off with the shower water. I cried in my pillow at night. I cried by myself and silently, and did not let them see me cry. I did not let them hear me cry. A few times I had a breakdown, and, it really upset them, and they were, Mom, are you okay? And it really kind of rattled them, I guess. But I tried my best, not to let them see me struggle, not to let them see me cry, because I wanted to show like a strong mom, like I got this, and I'm okay, and I'm going to be okay. And if I can make it, then you can make it. I'm trying to show them by example. And that was a mistake because, I'm human, and all I was showing them was that it's not okay to show your emotions, that hold your grief in, And we all know now that you stuff your grief in, it just bubbles up and like explodes out at inappropriate times, or you stuff it in and it changes from sadness to depression to anger to violence, to those kind of things. So not healthy. And then I overheard my youngest one talking to my oldest one about how, well, Mom, I don't think Mom even cares about Daddy, because I've never hardly seen her cry about him. And so she got this idea that I didn't really care that he died, and I didn't really care about him because I didn't show a lot of grief, or I don't show a lot of grief in front of her. And so obviously she doesn't see me showing grief behind closed doors because I'm hiding it from her. And so she's got the idea that Mom didn't care about Daddy, and she doesn't even miss him. She just found a new husband, and she made that comment, she's like, Mom found a new husband. I can't find a new dad. I can't replace Daddy. But she just replaced one husband with another husband and just moved on, and like nothing happened. And so that's her. She didn't know I was hearing her say this. And so that makes me realize that that's how she really feels, that she's like, wow, Mom didn't give a crap about Daddy, because she never cries about him. And so, kids learn by example. And so if you want them to be able to express their emotions, they're going to have to see you express your emotions. And so don't be afraid to cry in front of your kids. Don't be afraid to sit down with them and say, I'm really sad about Daddy. I'm really having a hard time, and it's making me cry. It's making me cry right now talking about it, but like, it's okay. It's okay to, let your guard down. And you don't want them to see you like falling apart where you can't function, but it's okay to talk about it and tell them, yeah, I'm really sad and it makes me cry. And I guess when they see you let it out, and then they see you moving forward and making steps to try to get better, maybe they can use that and say, well, Mom was really upset and it made her cry, and she cried about it, and then she got better and she got up and went to work the next day. So maybe I can get up and I can cry and have some moments, but I'm going to get up and go to school tomorrow. So anyway, so I didn't realize that was going to really choke me up like it did. So anyway, that is going to be my list of the 11 mistakes that I made when I became a widowed parent. And, I'm still making mistakes because I'm still parenting. I still got 2 left at home. One's 16, one is 11. They're both struggling immensely, and I'm trying my best, to hang in there. And it's really tiring. I tell people all the time that the hardest part of grieving for me was parenting grieving children. That has been the hardest part of my grief journey, and it's still going on. And so I might be one happy widow, but it doesn't mean that I am not grieving. It doesn't mean I'm not struggling. It doesn't mean that I am, that everything is easy. It's I still struggle. It's just that I want to be happy. I don't want to be stuck in grief. I don't want to cry all the time. I don't want my kids to struggle. I want us all to be happy. I want us to be one happy family, that's dealing with this loss. But, I don't know how to make it happen for everybody. So all I can do is share what has worked for me, share what is definitely not worked for me. So, your mileage may vary. But I just wanted to share this with you in hopes that maybe, you could relate, and that you could maybe take some of this and before you get too far down the road, don't do these things, maybe think about these things before you do it. And, put your kids in therapy if you think at all they might need it, because they probably do. All right. So, if you have made some parenting mistakes that are not on this list, go ahead and comment below and let me know, because I'd like to read some other parenting mistakes so that I don't feel like I'm like the only failure as a parent, as a grieving parent out there, and know that I'm not alone. And, if you have any advice for us, and put that down there too. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. And give it a thumbs up if you like this video. And until then, we will see you next time on a video for next week. Bye, guys.